Have you ever felt completely lost, like you forgot who you really are? That's exactly how my nephew felt the night he showed up at my house without telling anyone. What happened next changed both of our lives forever. This is a story about getting lost, finding your way back, and discovering that home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a person. But first, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I love connecting with people from all over the world. If you enjoy heartwarming stories like this one, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps me share more stories that touch the heart. Now, let's begin. It was a cool Friday evening in late October. The kind of night when you can smell the autumn leaves through your windows and the air feels crisp and fresh. I'm Sarah, and I'm 58 years old. I live by myself in a cozy house just outside of town. My husband died 7 years ago, and my 2 children are all grown up with their own busy lives. Most days, I don't mind being alone. I've learned to enjoy the peaceful quietness of my home. That evening, I was relaxing on my couch with a warm cup of tea. The TV was playing softly in the background. I was thinking about heading to bed soon. Then I heard a soft knock on my front door. My heart started beating faster. Who could be visiting this late at night? I don't get many visitors, especially not after dark. I looked through the window to see who it was. Standing on my porch was Ethan, my sister's son. But he wasn't the little boy I remembered. He was 27 years old now, tall and grown up. Yet somehow, he still looked like that young teenager who used to visit me during summer vacations. His shoulders were slumped forward, like he was carrying something very heavy. I opened the door right away. "Ethan, is everything okay?" I asked, worried. His eyes looked tired and red. He gave me a small, sad smile. "Hi, Aunt Sarah," he said quietly. "I was just driving around. I ended up here." I didn't ask any more questions. I could see that he needed help. I stepped aside and let him come inside. The warm light from my house welcomed him in. He walked slowly into my living room and looked around like he was remembering old times. Brought him a soft blanket and made him a cup of hot tea, the same cinnamon tea my own kids loved when they were young. He held the cup carefully in both hands, like it was something precious. We sat together in silence for a while. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It felt like we were both waiting for the right moment to talk. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Do you ever just drive and drive until nothing makes sense anymore?" he asked. "You just hope you'll end up somewhere that feels like home?" I nodded. "Many times," I answered. "But usually, home isn't where you think it's going to be." He looked up at me with surprise in his eyes, like he didn't expect me to understand. We talked for hours that night. Ethan told me everything that had been happening in his life. He had moved to a big city for work. His job paid his bills, but it didn't make him happy. He had recently broken up with his girlfriend, someone he thought he might marry someday. But the worst part was this. He felt lost. He didn't know who he was anymore. I listened carefully. I didn't try to give him advice or tell him what to do. I just listened like someone who had been lost before too. Because the truth is, I had been. As we talked, we also remembered good times from the past. We laughed about the summers he spent at my house as a kid. We talked about my husband, who Ethan loved spending time with. We talked about how life surprises you when you least expect it. At one point, Ethan looked around my living room and said, "I don't know why I came here. I just knew it would feel safe." Those words touched my heart in a deep way. For years, I had wondered if I still mattered to anyone. My kids were grown and busy. My husband was gone. Did anyone still need me? But here was Ethan, sitting in my living room. He wasn't a little boy anymore, but he still remembered that my home was a safe place. He remembered the woman who used to read him bedtime stories when his mom was working late. I offered him my guest bedroom, and he said yes, But he hesitated, like he wasn't sure if he deserved my kindness. Before he went to sleep, I stopped in the hallway and said, "You don't need to know why you're here, Ethan. Sometimes you just need a place where it's okay to fall apart a little." He smiled, a real, genuine smile this time. "Thanks, Aunt Sarah." That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about how strange and beautiful life can be. Sometimes the most important moments come when you least expect them. They come wrapped in silence, surprise visits, and reconnecting with someone you once cared for. And I realized something important. Maybe we never stop being needed. Maybe somewhere in the world, there's always someone who remembers us as home. The wind outside grew quiet, and for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. The next morning came slowly. That's how full mornings are. The sun takes its time waking up. I was already in the kitchen, as always. I put the kettle on for tea and started making breakfast. Routine makes me feel good. It helps me feel calm when the world seems too fast. Ethan hadn't come downstairs yet. For a moment, I wondered if he had left during the night. Maybe he felt embarrassed about showing up unannounced. But then I heard footsteps upstairs. He was still here. That made me feel happy and relieved. I pulled out my old frying pan and started cooking eggs, toast and bacon. The delicious smell filled the whole house. When Ethan finally came downstairs, his hair was messy and his eyes were puffy from sleep. But he looked better than last night. "Smells like a memory," he said, leaning against the doorway. I smiled. "You always woke up hungry when you stayed here." He laughed softly. "I wasn't sure if last night was a dream." "Not a dream," I said. "You're here, and I'm happy about that." We ate breakfast together quietly. Sometimes family doesn't need to talk right away. Just being together is enough. Old blues music played softly on the radio. The kind of music that makes you feel things deep in your heart. "Do you remember that summer you stayed with us?" I asked. "When your mum went to Florida for work?" He nodded. "The summer I got chickenpox." I laughed. "And you blamed my garden for it. You said my tomatoes gave you spots." He grinned, and for the first time since arriving, I saw the little boy he used to be. The boy who would fall asleep watching old Western movies with my husband. The boy who couldn't sleep unless I sang him a lullaby. It was strange how close the past felt when someone from your memories suddenly shows up again. After breakfast, I suggested we go for a walk. The leaves on the trees were changing colors, beautiful shades of orange, gold, and red. Behind my house, there's a path that goes through a small forest and leads to a creek. When Ethan was little, he would throw rocks into that water for hours. He would pretend he was making wishes. Today, he walked slower. He walked like someone who was carrying heavy thoughts. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore," he finally said. "My job, my relationships, nothing feels right. I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Everyone keeps telling me I should have my life figured out by now." I nodded. "That pressure never really goes away," I said. "People always think you should be somewhere different than where you are. But sometimes the most honest thing you can say is, I don't know." There's freedom in admitting that. He didn't respond right away. He just picked up a stone and threw it across the water. It bounced twice before sinking. "I think that's why I came here," he said. "Because I didn't have to explain myself to you." "You don't," I agreed. "You're allowed to just be yourself. No performing. No pretending." We sat down on an old wooden bench near the creek. My husband built that bench many years ago when our kids were small. He always said it was the perfect spot to watch the seasons. Changed. Ethan leaned back and relaxed his shoulders for the first time in days. "You were always the one adult who made me feel like my thoughts mattered," he said. "Even when I was talking about silly things like comic books or space. You listened like what I said was important." I felt tears forming in my eyes. I listened because I loved hearing your thoughts, I said. You were curious about everything. You still are, it's just buried under stress and worry. We stayed by the creek until the wind picked up and the sun started going down. On the way back to the house, we didn't talk much. But the silence felt comfortable, like something inside Ethan was beginning to heal. That evening after dinner, I pulled out an old box of photographs from my closet door. We spread them across the dining table, pictures of birthdays, family picnics, school photos, and candid moments we had forgotten about. Wow, Ethan said, picking up a photo of himself at about 10 years old. In the picture, he was standing next to my daughter with chocolate cake smeared all over his face. I remember this, he said. I was so mad that she smashed cake in my face. But secretly I thought it was funny. She did it because you told her she was too girly to play baseball, I reminded him. He grinned, holding the photo like it was a treasure. I forgot how much this place meant to me, he said quietly. Not just the house, you. Those words landed gently in my heart. That night, as he got ready for bed, he stopped in the doorway of the guest room. Thanks for letting me stay, Aunt Sarah. I don't know what I was looking for when I came here, but I think I needed this. I reached over and squeezed his arm gently. My door is always open, Ethan. You don't need a reason to come. As he closed the door, I stood in the hallway for a moment with my heart feeling full, not because everything was fixed or solved, but because we had found something rare, real, honest connection. And maybe that's what we're all searching for when we knock on someone's door in the middle of the night. The third day had a special calmness to it. Even the birds outside seemed quieter, singing more thoughtfully than usual. I stood at the kitchen sink, watching leaves drift slowly to the ground. I wondered how long Ethan would stay. I hadn't asked him, and I didn't want to. I didn't want him to feel like he had to leave. He came downstairs later than usual, wearing the same hoodie from the night he arrived. Morning, he said, rubbing his eyes. Morning. Coffee's ready. He sat at the table and wrapped his hands around the warm mug dot. We sat in comfortable silence again. But this silence was different. It wasn't hiding feelings, it was making space for them. Do you ever wish you could go back? He asked suddenly. Back to when? I replied. Before. When things felt simple. When everyone was still around. I sat down across from him. I do sometimes, I admitted. I miss your uncle every single day. I miss when the house was noisy with little kids running around. But I also know I didn't appreciate those moments enough when they were happening. Ethan looked down at his coffee. I think I've been so focused on where I thought I should be that I forgot to notice where I actually am, he said. I smiled gently. Most of us don't figure that out until we've lost something important. He looked at me with searching eyes. Do you think it's too late to start over? He asked. No, I said firmly. Not at all. After breakfast, I asked if he wanted to help me in the garden. My back doesn't bend as easily as it used to, and I thought having help would be nice. He agreed, and we spent the late morning outside, digging up the last vegetables from summer and preparing the soil for winter. There was something peaceful about working side by side. The earth has a way of reminding you about the rhythm of life, how things grow, fade away, and return again. Ethan seemed more relaxed. His shoulders weren't so tense anymore. He even joked with me about my big sun hat, and I playfully smacked his arm with my gardening gloves. Later, we sat on the back porch drinking cold lemonade. The sun came out fully, making everything look golden and beautiful. I never told you this, Ethan said quietly. But after my dad left, I used to pretend that your house was mine, that this was where I really belonged. I looked at him surprised. You never told anyone that? I asked. He shook his head. I didn't think I was allowed to. It felt disloyal to my mom. But this place, I knew it always felt steady and safe. My chest tightened with emotion. Well, I said softly, maybe it was yours all along. You don't have to be born into a place for it to feel like home. He looked down at his hands. When he looked back up, his eyes were shiny with tears. I think I've been trying so hard to be someone I'm not, he said. Trying to make everyone proud. Trying to prove something to people who probably aren't even paying attention. And I don't even know who I am under all that anymore. I reached out and placed my hand over his. You're someone who showed up, I said. Someone who knew when to come home. That says more than any job title or plan ever could. We sat there for a long time, letting the sun warm our skin and the breeze blow through the trees. That evening, Ethan offered to make dinner. Just simple pasta and garlic bread, but it meant something special. He moved around the kitchen like he remembered everything, where the pans were, which drawer had the silverware, even the chipped blue plate he always used as a kid. We laughed over dinner. Real laughter that bubbled up naturally. After cleaning up, I lit a fire in the fireplace. It wasn't quite cold enough for one yet, but the crackling wood and dancing flames felt right. Ethan sat on the old couch with a blanket over his knees, just like he used to do when he was younger. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, he said. You don't have to, I replied. You just have to be here now. Tomorrow will figure itself out. He nodded slowly, watching the fire. I never realized how much I missed being truly seen, he whispered. I understood exactly what he meant. We all want to be seen not for what we do or what we fail at, but for who we really are underneath everything else. You're not invisible here, I said. You never were. And for the first time since arriving, Ethan didn't seem so weighed down. The next morning, I woke up to gentle rain tapping against the windows. The kind of rain that whispers instead of shouts. The world felt softer, like it was taking a deep breath. I stayed in bed a little longer, listening to the rhythmic patter of raindrops. For a moment, I remembered waking up years ago to the sound of my children laughing in the kitchen and my husband humming while making pancakes. I usually didn't let myself think about those memories too much. They made my heart ache. But this morning I let them in. When I finally went downstairs, I was surprised to find Ethan already awake. He was standing by the window with a mug of coffee, watching the rain. Morning, I said. He turned and smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Didn't mean to wake you. You didn't, the rain did. He looked back outside. I was just thinking how strange it is. I've been rushing around for years. Always somewhere to be. Always something to prove. And now that I've stopped, I can finally hear myself think. I stood beside him at the window. Sometimes we don't know how much noise we're living with until it's gone, I said. He took a sip of his coffee and nodded. I've been thinking about making a real change, he said. Not just getting a new job or moving to a new city. Something deeper. I looked at him carefully. What kind of change? I don't know exactly, he admitted. But I know it starts with being honest with myself, with the people in my life. I've spent too long trying to be the person everyone expected. Maybe it's time to figure out who I really am. There was quiet courage in his words. You've already started, I said. Coming here. Opening up, that's not nothing. That's the beginning. For the first time, I didn't just see the boy I helped raise during summer vacations. I saw a man choosing a different path, one built not on certainty, but on intention. After breakfast, we spent the afternoon looking through more old photos. This time we had soft folk music playing in the background. I handed him a picture of him and my daughter, both barefoot, standing knee-deep in the creek behind the house. They were grinning at the camera like they had just found buried treasure. You two were inseparable that summer, I said, laughing. She was the only one who ever beat me at skipping rocks. he replied with a smile. We went through dozens of photos. Each one was a snapshot of a time we thought would last forever. It amazed me how many quiet moments had turned into precious memories. Eventually, the conversation shifted to heavier topics. I've been thinking about calling my mom, Ethan said. We haven't really talked since our big fight. I paused. Do you want to? He nodded slowly. I think I need to. Even if it's just to tell her I'm okay. She'll want to hear that, I said. And you'll feel better for saying it. Later that evening, Ethan sat out on the porch, phone in hand, nervously looking through old text messages. I gave him privacy and stayed in the kitchen. From the window, I watched him take a deep breath and finally make the call. He stayed on the phone for a while. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw him relax little by little. At one point, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, nodding slowly to whatever his mom was saying when he came back inside. He looked peaceful, more peaceful than I'd seen since he arrived. She cried, he said simply. She always had a soft heart, I replied. She said she was sorry, and that she missed me. I nodded. That's good. That's a start. He paused in the doorway, thinking carefully about his next words. I wouldn't have made that call if I hadn't come here, he said. If I hadn't slowed down enough to think clearly. You were always going to find your way, I said. But I'm glad I got to see this part of your journey. That night, we sat by the fire again. No need for much conversation. Just the warmth of being together. Do you think we ever really figure life out? He asked, watching the flames. I thought for a moment. I think we stopped needing to, I finally answered. That's the difference. When we realize life isn't about solving everything. It's about being present for the parts that matter. The people, the moments, the quiet connections. When it was time for bed, Ethan stood in the hallway a little longer than usual. I should probably head back tomorrow, he said. I've got some things to take care of, but I'd like to come back again soon, if that's okay. You don't have to ask, Ethan. This is still your home. He stepped forward then, and for the first time in many years he hugged me. Really hugged me. The kind of hug that says, thank you. I see you. I needed this more than I knew. I held on tight, letting the silence wrap around us like a warm blanket. The next morning, he packed up his things. Nothing was rushed. He moved thoughtfully, looking around with appreciation. Before he left, he stood at the doorway, the same doorway where he had arrived just days ago, and smiled. Thanks for everything, Aunt Sarah. I won't forget this. You don't have to remember every detail, I said. Just carry it with you. And then he was gone. The sound of his car faded into the distance as leaves danced across the driveway. I stood there for a while, watching the empty road. The house was quiet again. That something had changed. Not just in Ethan and me, too. The door he knocked on that night wasn't just a front door. It was a door to something deeper. A reminder that no matter how quiet our lives become, they still hold meaning. They still have room for reconnection, healing and purpose. I made another cup of tea and sat in my favorite chair, looking out at the garden. The rain had stopped. The air smelled clean and fresh. The world looked the same, but somehow it felt different. And somewhere out there, a young man was driving forward with a little more clarity and peace in his heart. Because sometimes all it takes is one unexpected knock on the door to remember that we're never really alone. Thank you so much for reading this story. If it touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me share more stories like this one. Remember, home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a person who sees you for who you really are. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.